Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know what has gotten into me in the last half an hour, but I am super energized. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I actually ate some food. Um, I had a sandwich that I made. It's my 50 gram of protein. So lots of turkey, ham, cheese, lettuce, cucumbers, bacon. Yep, part of my meal prep. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Let's jump into chapter four. Four, yes, chapter four. All right, so today we're going to go over chapter four, the PowerPoint. On Wednesday, we'll do an in class activity for chapter four. Okay. What does chapter four cover? It's a little bit of a continuation of what we talked about last week with chapter three is lodging. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. Um, welcome, welcome. We're going to wrap up the chapter four today and on Wednesday as it relates to lodging. And then remember, next week, Monday, Wednesday, we do not have class. Okay, it's independent study. Basically, you're going to do all the information for chapter five and chapter six. Okay, um, so we will not have class next week on Monday and Wednesday. The following week, we will have class. Okay, on Monday, the 29th, we will have class that day. So we'll come back and we'll talk about chapter five, which is all about cruises. Anybody been on a cruise before? I have not been on a cruise. Oh, just a couple of people? Cool. Okay. Then we'll definitely be relying on you guys to give us the lowdown on cruises. Because again, I don't have much experience with that. I do remember that. All right. So here we go. Chapter four. What is the primary function of a hotel? To accommodate, to provide clean guest rooms. Jasmine, remind me to do your attendance, right? Okay. Um, provide clean, comfortable accommodations, right? Um, and so, what we're going to talk about is how our hotels perform that function and how they fulfill that. Last class, we talked a little bit about different levels of service. What is the difference between a full service hotel and a select service hotel? Yes. Uh huh. Yeah. That's a great way to sum it up. Traditionally, each brand kind of has its own different definition, but traditionally a full service is going to have food and beverage outlets. Okay. That's a term that you're going to hear, outlet. Okay. That looks horrible. So outlets are basically areas that guests can spend money. So food and beverage restaurants are like a food and beverage outlet. They may have one, it may just be one main restaurant. They may have multiple outlets. So, for example, the JW Marriott up in the Hill Country, the near Stone Oak, they have multiple food and beverage outlets. So they have a sports bar, they have a whiskey bar, they have a 3 meals a day restaurant that serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They have in-room dining, also called room service. So those different food and beverage outlets. Okay. What other outlets might we have in a hotel besides food? A spa, yes. What else? Okay, potentially a gym if we like charge something for it, but usually the gym would be considered an amenity, right? An amenity is something that you have access to as a guest of the hotel. So the fitness center, the pool, those may be amenities that you don't necessarily have to pay for because you're a guest of the hotel. But outlets are areas where we're going to provide some kind of service that we're going to be charging for. Okay, potentially shuttles. Good. Yes. A gift shop, yes, absolutely. Everybody play golf? So we might have a golf course, okay? So those different outlets are ways that we're going to help try to bring up our revenue, okay? The outlets and the other departments within the hotel make up the leaders of those departments make up the executive committees of the hotel, okay? Who's at the top of the organizational chart of a hotel? Who's the head leader? What's their title? General manager, okay? So the GM is usually up there. And then sometimes we have a director of operations or the assistant general manager, might be the same person, okay? And then we have different divisions. Who is included in the rooms division? What departments in the hotel are included in the rooms division? Housekeeping, who else? Not security, they're gonna be in a separate category. Front desk, right? The rooms division is anybody that has to do with the rooms. So front desk is selling the rooms and housekeeping is cleaning the rooms, okay? In addition, we also have what's called uniformed services. So that's going to be like concierge, valet, bellman, the people that will help you take your bags to your room, okay? So that's our rooms division. Food and beverage, we've already talked. Yes, go ahead.
Does like room service, like service count?
So room service falls under food and beverage because they are a food and beverage outlet. Yeah, so those servers are going to report to the food and beverage director. Yeah. But that food and beverage director is going to oversee all food and beverage outlets. And then there may be a manager at that outlet. Okay, but the director is going to oversee all the food and beverage operations for the hotel. What is human resources going to oversee? Yeah. Good. So relationships between the employees. What are some things that the human resources department might have to handle? Okay, so applying any kind of employee policies and relationships with other employees may be part of that policy. So they may have to enforce those policies. What else? Any altercations that happen? Okay. So the human resources isn't necessarily going to handle the guest altercations. That may be more security or loss prevention. There's something that happens between the guests. Human resources is primarily focused on the human resource, the employees or the associates is who we're kind of focusing on. So hiring, interviewing, promoting jobs that are available. I just got an email today from the HR recruitment team at, I think it's the Grand Hyatt. Every week they send me what their open job positions are. And then I post it on the bulletin board outside my office. Amaya, did you have a question or comment? No, I thought I saw a hand over here. Okay. So yeah, so human resources are going to deal with that. They may also have to deal with firing people, making sure people have their benefits that they sign up for. So human resources kind of does a lot of stuff. Security, we also call LP, which stands for loss prevention. Okay, yes, sir.
In the chart under rooms division, it says front office manager, security, loss prevention, and then executive housekeeper is the three underneath the rooms division.
Okay. Is that from the textbook?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I would need to go back and revise that. But traditionally, and it also kind of depends on the hotel, right? Some hotels don't even have security. Maybe they employ like an off-duty police officer to patrol in the evenings or during the day. So it kind of just depends on the hotel. But yeah, so they're going to be slightly different. Security, loss prevention, they are protecting the asset, protecting the hotel, but they're also protecting the people. Okay, so they're protecting belongings. They may have to do an investigation if something goes missing. They're going to be working on that. What does sales and marketing do? Marketing advertises, good. And then what does sales do? They sell the rooms, right? But do they sell the rooms to just anybody? So revenue management, sales and marketing does communicate with the revenue manager to determine how much they can sell their rooms for and how many rooms they can sell. Okay. So oftentimes we have different markets. We have business, we have leisure, and we have group. Okay. So business is somebody who's just traveling for business. So I may, as a salesperson, reach out to HEB and say, hey, you know what? You looks like you guys have people traveling all the time for work, coming into town for training. You have executives coming in because their headquarters are right over here. My hotel's right across the street. I would love to set up an account with you. And those are business travelers. Okay. So they're traveling independently. Group is when a whole group of people are coming in. Okay. And so group can be for conferences, conventions, it can be family reunions, bachelorette parties, bachelor parties. Um, so we can kind of look at different ways that people are going to come in. The sales office, they are going to be primarily focused on room blocks. What does it mean by a room block? What do you think? A certain amount of rooms. Yes. Okay. So how many think is the minimum room block that a hotel salesperson would be looking at? You say two rooms? What else? Higher? 12? 10 rooms is typically what we're looking for, right? Minimum of what we call 10 room nights. Does that mean they're going to have 10 rooms? It just means 10 room nights. So if you've got a family reunion and you're going to stay for 2 nights and you've got 6 different people in your group, right? If you have 6 rooms for 2 nights, how many room nights is that? 12. 6 times 2 is 12 room nights. So typically at that point, sales would get involved. Okay. Um, because oftentimes when you have groups like that, there's other things. Maybe they're going to want meals together as a group. Maybe they're going to need like a meeting space to all get together and gather. Okay. And so sales can give them that. If you just make the reservations on the hotel website, you can do that, but you're not going to get all that extra stuff in there. Okay. Also, too, with those room nights, it also helps, working with maybe potentially a lower rate. So if you're going to guarantee, okay, in the next weekend, I'm going to give you 50 room nights. Okay. Then maybe they can either come down the rate a little bit, they can negotiate that rate. So having those room blocks is really important in working with the sales office. Sales also, too, is one of the hotel departments that more often has the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job schedule. So very few hotel jobs have a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday schedule. Sales is one of them. Not always, but usually sales has that 9 to 5 Monday through Friday schedule. So accounting. What does accounting do? Deals with money. Okay. Yeah, so it makes sure that all of our bills get paid and all of our money that is owed to us comes in. So after that group leaves, they have a bill for $40,000. Accounting is going to be making sure that we're getting collecting on that. Okay. And at the same time, accounting is dealing with paying the vendors for all the ingredients that we made the food for those individuals. Okay. So accounting happens that. Oftentimes, you'll see this executive committee. They have a stand-up meeting. What does that mean, a stand-up meeting? Exactly. And it's called stand-up because typically it's about a 15 to 20-minute meeting, maybe 30 minutes max. So it's like everyone come over, we're not even gonna sit down. We're gonna stand up in a circle and we're gonna talk about all these things. What's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? What's happening in the next week? Okay. You may have longer meetings that are gonna be like a little bit looking out a little bit further out, right? But what's happening this week? What do I need to know today? Okay, we have 5 VIPs coming in today. Housekeeping, I need you to make sure you assign those rooms first to your room attendant so that the VIPs, when they're ready, the VIPs are coming in, the rooms are ready. We don't have to wait for them, right? So having those kinds of conversations and communications on a daily basis, okay? That's why it's usually about 15, 20, 30 minutes, not very long at all. Anybody been a server before? Okay, you had that, remember you had that pre-shift meeting, everyone kind of huddles up and talks about the specials for the day or what's going on. Same thing happens in stand-up, except it's the executive level people that are having those conversations to then go through and tell, okay, now this is our responsibility. So then the executive housekeeper goes back and says, okay, y'all, this now they have their meeting with their staff before they go out and clean the rooms. This is what's happening today. We have 300 people checking out, and then 4 hours later, we're going to have 200 people checking in. So we got to make sure that we are moving quickly. Housekeeping, what can we do to help our room attendants? Okay, all of our housemen, you're going to go up and you're going to strip the beds and pull out the trash. So that way all our ladies have to, I say ladies, generally ladies, sorry, don't mean to be offensive, but that way all the room attendants can go in and all they have to do is clean the bathroom, restock, and make the bed and vacuum. And that's it. So it makes their job a lot faster. So we can turn those rooms over a lot quicker, right? So just that communication is really important. Something to think about with the rooms division, oftentimes they're the first point of interaction, whether that's valet or if it's somebody who's at the front desk, okay? Let's talk about our guest cycle. How many of you before reading this chapter knew there was a such thing as a guest cycle? How many did not know that? Awesome. As long as you learn one thing every day, then you're growing, okay? Yeah, there's a guest cycle that we go through. The same thing can also be applied in food service, okay? Except in hotels, we're selling hotel rooms. In food service, you're selling tables during a meal service, right? But the same thing can be applied as that guest cycle. So what happens during the reservation time frame? Think about from a guest perspective. What are the guests doing during the reservation time? So they're contacting the hotel, whether that's maybe by phone, on the internet, or the app, even. There was one time I forgot that I had a trip coming up. And so I was in the movie theater. I was got on the app and I was like, oh, it's still previews. I can keep my phone on. And so I made my hotel reservation before the preview was over. So super fast. What are some things that you think about looking for when you are looking for a hotel? What's something that's like an attribute of the hotel that's super important for you personally? What's that? The price. Okay, good. Yes. The location of the room. Can you expand on that? Okay, yeah. So is it a city view? Is it a riverwalk view? Is it a view of the mountains? What is the view? Okay, good. Okay, yes. I remember one time I wasn't there. I didn't go to that family reunion that year, but my family went to Colorado and they had rented like a condo or something. And my mom was like, somebody turn the AC. And they're like, there is no AC. She was like, well, call the maintenance. And they're like, no, there literally is no AC because they were in the mountains. And so they just open the windows and a cool breeze comes through, you know? So yeah, I want to make sure there's AC. Amaya, did you have something? Yes, absolutely. Is it a king bed? Is it a queen bed? Is the bed comfortable? Did we talk about the Weston Heavenly bed in this class? No. So Weston, many years ago when they were still part of Starwood before Marriott bought them, Weston invested $10 million on the Heavenly bed. And I am here to testify it is heavenly. It is absolutely amazing. And it's not just the mattress, it's the sheets that they use, it's the comforter, it's everything from start, like from the bottom on up. It is an incredibly heavenly bed. If you want, just Google search "heavenly bed" by Weston, and they are the ones. They literally spent $10 million perfecting the hotel bed. And it is so amazing. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So is it close to where I'm visiting? Am I visiting SeaWorld? Am I going to a concert? Is it across from the venue? Right. So yeah, that's a very good point. The location of the hotel itself. Yes. Yes, the pool. That's or any kind of like if you go to like JW Marriott, the Hyatt Hill Country Resort, the Lock and Terra doesn't have Lock and Terra just has pools, but JW Marriott, Hyatt Hill Country Resort, they have water slides, they have a water park, so those types of amenities are really important. Yes. Okay, so you might be looking at the reviews as you're doing that, and if they have a lot of bad reviews, maybe that's going to make your influence your decision to stay there. Yes. Do they serve breakfast and is it complimentary? Okay. So complimentary breakfast. Absolutely.
$1,645.
That's it. Wow, I would have thought it was way more than $1,600. Is it just the bed or is it the whole bedding set?
Just the mattress.
Just the mattress. Okay. The whole bed is 6,100, $6,000. Okay. I mean, if it's heavenly and it gets you your sleep every night. All right, here we go. So Hilton, I'm just gonna go to Hilton because that's what I'm used to doing. All other hotels will do the same thing. But this is interesting. So during the reservation stage, let's say I'm going to San Antonio. Okay. I do my check-in. Let's say we're going to travel next week. Room guest. I'm going to find a hotel. Now, as I'm doing this, I can actually, if I have Hilton Honors points, I can select to use points. Right? What's that? Sure they do. No, that's not, I mean, I do have a million points, but only because I really wanted to get to that million mark. Just because I want to get that million mark just for fun. But now I want to start using my points. But no, you could probably get like for Hilton, a Hampton Inn, probably anywhere between 25 to 35,000 points. Now, I personally, the reason why I have so many points is because I have an American Express Hilton Honors. So I get points for my daily purchases, not just hotel. If you're only staying at hotel purchases, yeah, it's going to take you a while to get there. Um, but sometimes there's ways like in other like with the American Express or the Southwest Chase Visa, like you can get airline points by doing your daily spending. So that's also another way you can do that. But it does. Some of them, I mean, it's interesting. I stayed in a DoubleTree hotel in Hilo, which is on the east side of the Big Island of Hawaii. There's only 50,000 points. Um, and so that was actually a really good deal. I stayed there for 150,000 points for 3 days. And by using the points, it waives the resort fee because I'm not paying any dollars. And so they just kind of waived the resort fee too. So that was really interesting. But what I wanted to show you as we're coming here online, if we go to the filters, you can actually filter by brand. So there's a specific brand. Look at that. All those brands by Hilton. Okay. But also, is it free breakfast? Do I have free parking? Is there an airport shuttle? Okay. So all those things you can apply and then um it cuts down your searches. So the reservation, I guess what I'm trying to say in that whole long roundabout way is in the reservation stage, we really are looking at what is important to the customer, to the potential guest. And then they're going to make that decision based on the availability of those amenities. Then, as they arrive, we're going to assign their room. We're going to take their method of payment. Okay. So we pre authorize that card. What are we pre authorizing? When we swipe that credit card, what are we pre authorizing? So we're adding the total amount for the stay, so the room nights plus tax and the incidentals. What do I mean by incidentals? So just in case something happens, yes, but not necessarily for the incidentals. Incidentals are what? So that so not damage to the room. No, we're not going to take that into consideration. Now we are going to have their card on file. So if there is damage to the room, we can charge that card on file for those damages. Incidentals, let me put it this way. Depending on where you stay, incidentals can be anywhere from $50 to $100 per day. What are we doing with that $50 per day? For potentially room service. So basically charging anything to the room. Those incidentals are charging anything to the room, whether I walk up to the front desk and say, can I get a soda? And let me put it on the room, right? So that $50 per day is going to say when I swipe this card, at the end of the stay, I'm pre-authorizing that total amount. Now, if I don't spend that total amount, let's say I didn't charge anything to the room, then that $50 per day just falls off, right? And I actually charge the actual amount when I check out. So during the stay, we're posting charges. That's what post guest charges mean. Posting charges to our folio. We're charging things to the room. Okay. So the more areas we have that we can charge guests can charge things to the room, the more revenue we can increase. And then as they check out, that's our last opportunity. How was your stay? Anything else we can do to make your stay or correct any issues that happened? Or apologize. I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith. I'm really sorry that you had a bad experience with your AC. Did we get it fixed to your liking? Just last opportunity for us to correct any issues. And you know what, Mr. Smith, because you had to deal with an air conditioning issue, I'm going to go ahead and give you 10,000 Hilton Honors points for your inconvenience. Okay. So again, that's our way to kind of correct that. Front office, we've already talked about. Okay. Now I know all of you are not hotel people. Okay. But we're going to talk about KPIs. KPIs stands for key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. And no matter what job or whatever industry you go into, that industry has KPIs. It's specific to that industry, but that industry has KPIs. These are things that we're going to be looking at to see how well we are performing in our area. So one of them for our hotels is our occupancy percentage. Okay. So occupancy percentage, what does that mean? Yeah, so what the rooms that are available, how many of them are actually full? So if I have a hotel that has 200 rooms, right? If I have a hotel that has 200 rooms and I sell 175 of them, so there are 175 are occupied. Divided by 200, what do I get? What's 175 to, actually, let's do 150. Sorry, let's do math. A little bit easier. 150. What is 150 divided by 200? 0.75. And so that becomes 75%. That means my hotel is 75% full. There's 25% that is empty. Is that good or bad? Good, bad, or I'm not sure what you're asking. Is this good? 75%, is that good, bad, or I'm not quite sure. Yeah. So that's a great question. It depends. If my goal was to be at 80%, is 75% good? No. If my goal is to be full at 80 and I only meet 75, I'm not quite to my goal, right? But if my goal was to be 50% full and I reach 75, that's great, right? So we're going to compare what our goal was, okay? Now, if we got 75% and we were supposed to get 80, is that the end of the world? No, because tomorrow our goal might be 70 and we get 80, right? So tomorrow it might even out. So we look at our occupancy on a daily basis, but we also look at an occupancy from maybe a week to a month to a quarter to a year. Okay. So different ways we look at that. We could also use this in restaurants. If I can accommodate 500 reservations and I only have 400 reservations, well, I only was 80% full, right? And so it's just in this case we're talking about hotel rooms. Sometimes what might impact our total rooms available? What might impact this number of 200? When it might be less than 200? What's that? Well, so okay, that the price has gone up. That might impact how many rooms are actually reserved. That's the occupied rooms. But that number of 200 rooms, my building has 200 rooms in it. What might impact to where I don't have 200 rooms? Yeah, any maintenance issues? Renovations, absolutely. So if I have maintenance issues and we put rooms out of order, out of order, let's say the plumbing is messed up and we have to replace the plumbing. I can't sell that room, right? So that might make it down to 199. Or if we have renovations, oftentimes when hotels do renovations, they'll take out an entire floor at one time. I can't sell those rooms, they're not available. So I'm going to decrease this number. Otherwise, it will mess with my occupancy, right? I can't sell those rooms, so I can't keep them in that 200. ADR is the other one that we talk about. ADR, average daily rate. How do you find the average of any number? We add them all up and then we divide by how many numbers there are, right? So the same thing happens with our hotels. If I have a room revenue of $15,000 and I sold those 150 rooms, what is my average daily rate? $100. Does that mean I sell every room for $100? No, that's the average. Some I might sell for more, right? Going back to Arliss's point about location of the room, if I have a room that's going to look over the rooftop of a building next to me versus a room that's going to look out over to the mountains, which one's going to cost more? The mountain view, right? So I'm not going to sell them all for the same price, but this tells me what my average is for the entire period. Okay. Can we apply this to restaurants? How can we apply this to restaurants? Does every guest pay the same amount for their food? No, but we could do an average per guest. So take all the money we brought in, divide by the number of guests that we served, and we can see the average guest spent $15. Maybe some spent more, maybe some spent less. Okay. Housekeeping. It's referred to as the heart of the house. Okay. Housekeeping is one of the most difficult, dare I say, thankless jobs in the hotel. It is challenging. Has anybody ever worked housekeeping? Okay, Julian, a little bit. Has anybody ever cleaned your own room? How long does it take you to clean your room? To where it is like magazine picture perfect. I mean, I'm going on years probably at this point. I don't think my room's ever been magazine picture perfect. Right? Exactly. Don't open the closet, don't look under the bed. Okay. How long do our housekeepers typically have to clean a guest room from when they walk in and it's got to be when it's perfect when they walk out? Between 25 to 30 minutes, depending on the hotel and depending on what type of room it is. Some, like if it's a suite, it's a larger area, maybe they have 35 to 40 minutes. Okay. But literally 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes to clean a room perfect. So when the next guest can come in and check in and feel comfortable in a clean and comfortable environment. If the guest is not checking out, if the housekeeper is just going in, making the bed, pulling trash out, maybe restocking some amenities, how long do they have? 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes. So that's what's called a stayover, meaning the guest is not checking out. They're just going to go in and remake the bed. Maybe they're not going to put linens on it. They're just going to take the bed, maybe tuck the sheets back in, put the pillows nice and neat. The checkout is where they're going to have to do everything completely brand new. Okay. Most hotels are actually going to a credit system, meaning they have like a certain number of points. So every housekeeper, every room attendant, let's say, is assigned 40 points for their shift. And a stayover might be half a point. So in order for them to get, let's say 20 points, right? In order for them to get their 20 points, they'd have to do 40 stayovers. That's only 10 minutes, right? So they can do 6 per hour. Whereas somebody who is maybe doing a complete checkout maybe is 1.5 points. And so they still are going to be getting to that 20 points, that 20 credits, but maybe it's a mix of checkouts and stayovers. There's also Hotel Emma. One of the rooms they have is the Emma Kohler suite. It's like their presidential suite. It is basically like a small apartment. They have a baby grand piano, a seating area, and then upstairs is where the loft bedroom is, and then it has the bathroom. Okay. They usually allow 4 hours to clean that room. So that housekeeper, they're still working for 4 hours. Doesn't mean they're going to get 10 extra rooms that day. It just means for those 4 hours, they're focused on this one room. Right. Um, and so it's really important for those of us who are going into hotels to understand that our housekeepers are really, really strong and hard workers, and how we can motivate them, and how we can support them the best. If we know that the high school or the a high school football team is getting ready to check out the next day, and we know there are 4 people in every room, and each person had to have their own pizza because they can't share pizzas. So now we have to have 4 pizza boxes, and we have sodas, and we have all this extra trash, right? Maybe I'm gonna either hire some temp housekeepers to come in and help clean up the trash, or maybe I'm going to talk to the management team and say, okay, everybody, this group is checking out. Can we all come in khakis and a polo shirt tomorrow? And let's help out our housekeepers, right? What message does that send to your housekeepers if your general manager is up there taking trash out of those rooms, right? As a leadership position, you should never, ever, ever ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself, okay? And that includes scrubbing a toilet. Okay. So housekeeping is really important. We talked about food and beverage already. Different room rates. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay, 25 minutes. Um, Different room rates that we have. The rack rate is what we want to get. We don't always get the rack rate. Have you ever noticed when you close the hotel room that has the price on the back of the door? Anybody ever noticed that before? So in Texas, you have to post the rack rate on the back of the door of the hotel room. Okay, so when the guest closes the door, says this room, the price of this room is $1,200, and you paid $150. Right? What that means is they cannot charge more than that rack rate of $1,250. So if there's like an emergency, or let's say the Final Four is coming to town. All right, Final Four is here. We can charge $2,000 for this room. Nope. Your rack rate is $1,250. That's the most you can spend. So it prevents price gouging. Okay. But that being said, your rack rate is also relatively exorbitant. So in those rare occasions that you can charge it, You can get that. Most other rates are a discount off of that rack rate. Anne-Marie, yes. So typically it's typically behind the door. It's in a very conspicuous place. Um, but every location, every like municipality has different regulations. So sometimes it's not always on the back of the door. And sometimes it's not always posted. So it kind of just depends on the municipality and the region that you're in. But I believe in Texas you have to post it on the back of the door. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, holy cow, somebody pays $1,200 for this room, right? Yeah, but you can't charge above the rack rate, right? So that's not something. But then also too, it deals with supply and demand, right? So if our supply is high, meaning we have a lot of empty rooms, and the demand is low, meaning not a lot of people are banging down our door to rent a room for us, basically our price is going to stay pretty moderate. If our supply is low, so as we start filling up and the demand keeps growing, meaning more people want those rooms, that price is going to go higher. My best friend, she graduated 2015, I think. She graduated from Harvard. And so I went up to go visit her. Cambridge, which is where Harvard is, they do one graduation a year. So there's 16,000 people graduating that weekend. Okay. We were at the Holiday Inn. One of her ex-friends, because of this situation, was their travel agent. And she was supposed to have booked 2 rooms. She only booked 1 room. So now we're at the Holiday Inn. There's literally 1 room left. And that room went for $700 for 1 room, one night at the Holiday Inn. And they can charge it. Why? Because the supply is low. It's the very last room and the demand is high. If you want to stay here, that's the price we're charging. Right? Every other hotel in the rest of the region is all sold out because there's 16,000 people getting ready to graduate the next day. And so that's how supply and demand works. So our rack rate is what that's our rate that we want to charge every day. But how we actually charge and fluctuate, that's revenue management. What you mentioned earlier, Ray, is revenue management. How do we charge for the right guest, for the right day, for the right price, for the right room? Okay. Now this revenue per available room, rev par, that's the last of the 3 KPIs we're looking at. Okay. So if I take that room revenue of $15,000 we had before, and I divide it by the 200 rooms in my hotel, what is 15,000 divided by 200? $75, right? My ADR, my average daily rate, was $100. That's the revenue divided by all the rooms that I sold. The RevPAR is actually $75 per room. That accounts for those 50 rooms that were not sold that night. So my RevPAR is always less than my ADR because I'm dividing by all the rooms in the hotel, not just the ones that were sold. Okay. And RevPAR, this is something that we can actually utilize to compare. So if Arliss's hotel, mine is 200. If Arliss Hotel has 250 rooms and Lonnie's hotel had 175 rooms, right? We can take our revenue that we brought in. Now, obviously, Arliss is going to have more money because she has 250 rooms. Lonnie only has 175 rooms. So if we looked at just the revenue, the dollar amount, obviously Arliss is probably going to have more because she has more rooms to sell. Even if you sell them at the same price, you're going to have more rooms to sell, so you have more revenue. But the revenue per available room actually allows us to compare hotels of different sizes because Lonnie may have an $85 RevPAR, meaning she sold more of her rooms at a higher price. And Arliss, although she has 250 rooms, maybe she actually didn't sell as many because she has more rooms to fill. and maybe it wasn't at a higher price. Okay. And so this revenue per available room kind of puts hotels on a level playing field. So we can see how well do these three hotels actually compare to each other. The last thing we're going to talk about is sustainability. We've already talked a little bit about this last class. We talked about the green initiatives. So we're actually not going to talk about it. I don't want to beat the dead horse. Okay. So next class on Wednesday, we are going to do some. I know it's a four-letter bad word. We are going to do some math. Okay, just kind of give you an example of what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to calculate those KPIs, the occupancy, the RevPAR, and the ADR. Okay, we're going to calculate that for three different hotels. And then we're going to answer these questions to basically how we analyze those hotels. Okay. We do have in hotels what we call, let's go back to revenue management. Our comp set or our competitive set. So who are our direct competitors? And in that, we give our data to Smith Travel Research. Okay. It's like a subscription we sign up for. And we tell them during this time, this is what our occupancy, our ADR, and our RevPAR was. And while that's happening, our competitors are also putting that up. And then at the end of the month, they'll send out a report called the STAR report, STR, and they'll send out that STAR report to everybody and say, where does your hotel stack up to your competitors? They don't say, okay, this is you and the Marriott. It's just Hotel A, Hotel B, Hotel C, but you've kind of identified who your competitive set is. And so that's what we're going to look at on Wednesday is how we take that data and then compare how our hotel did compared to our competitors. Because we always want to be number one. We always want to beat our competitors. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns. How many of you? Yes, go ahead. That's called the rack rate. How do you get the rack rate? How does it establish, or how does like the guest find out what the rack rate is? That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. It's tip. What's that? I mean, it's usually on the back of the door. It's usually where like the emergency evacuation plan is, and then right below there, it usually where this will say the rack rate. But you're asking me how do they calculate the rack rate? Yeah. So how they calculate the rack rate, I would assume, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume they would take how much revenue they want to bring in and divide by the number of rooms they have in the hotel. Or like if it's and then like that might be like their base. So if it's your standard guest room, and then let's say it's a suite, we might add $50 to the suite. Or at the Hotel Valencia downtown, they have courtyard rooms. So their hotel is like a U shape. And so they have like an internal courtyard, and those courtyard rooms are actually more expensive than the Riverwalk rooms because you're not surrounded by the noise of the city. And then like the first floor, or actually the third floor, but it's the first level of the courtyard. The rooms actually go out directly. You can walk onto the courtyard. The fourth, fifth, and sixth floors, they have balconies that look over, right? So that third floor, those will be the most expensive. And so oftentimes there's like a tiered system. So if it's a standard room, this is what it is. If it's a suite, then we're going to add X number of dollars. If it's a courtyard room, we're going to add X number of dollars. And it kind of goes up from there. Yes, Arliss. Yeah. No, that's a great question. Are you talking about like as a guest perspective or like the hotel perspective? From a guest perspective. So if it is truly all inclusive, a true all inclusive is going to be absolutely everything is included. So when you pay that room rate for the hotel room, that's going to include your meals. It's going to include your beverages. Usually that's alcoholic as well. Um, most of them will do like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they'll have like maybe 3 or 4 different restaurants that you can choose from. So you're not eating the same thing every day for breakfast or lunch or dinner, but they'll pretty much will give you almost like a credit system where you're allowed to do a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. So it's not like you're eating all day long. Okay. Some of them are where you can eat all day long if you want to. Um, some of them might be where it's like a inclusive of food, but then if you want and like non-alcoholic beverages, but if you want to have alcoholic beverages, there's an upcharge for that. So just look and see what really is included. From a hotel's perspective, we want to think about, what is the average that a guest is going to eat, and then that's going to help us to determine what cost we should put assigned to that. Oh yeah, it's per person usually. Yeah, and also too, if you think about it, if you look at it closely, sometimes it'll say like $750 per room for double occupancy, which means that room is technically $1,500 because it's $750 per person for a double. So you have to pay for a double occupancy. Yeah, good question. A lot of that we have to read the fine print or hire a travel agent. A travel agent can definitely help you navigate those and or make recommendations. The one thing you want to be careful though, if you're making recommendations from a travel agent, if you want to also think about like if they're getting any kind of commission from the hotel, they may be pushing you to a resort that maybe is going to give them more of a commission and maybe it's a less of a valuable experience. But at the same time, though, a true travel agent's not going to do that because if you do that, then you're going to spread negative reviews about their services. So in reality, if you go through a travel agent, that's something that would definitely be help you navigate that. And then also some of them are adults only, some of them are family friendly, right? And so understanding what atmosphere or ambiance you want to go with will help you determine which one is the best one. Yeah, but just because it's a resort doesn't mean it's all inclusive. Like the JW Resort up in Stone Oak, that's not all inclusive. So you pay for the hotel room and you pay a la carte for your food, your activities. Yeah, it's going to say an all inclusive package. Yeah, if it doesn't say that, then you just assume that it is not all inclusive. Yeah, excellent. Any other questions, comments, concerns? How many of you thought you'd be learning so much about hotels? Anybody want to change their major from culinary to hotels? If you do, come find me because we have a lot of fun. I will also say if we talk about food and beverage outlets, right? Where's food and beverage outlets? Here we go. There are food and beverage outlets in hotels. So as you are thinking about careers in culinary and pastry, it'll probably open up sometime in the fall. So in the next couple of months or so. I went up to upstate New York near Syracuse. Did I tell you about this resort up there? It's called Turning Stone. It's on the Oneida Nation. It's a casino resort. They have summer internships where you can go and live in upstate New York, and you can get your culinary and your pastry. Oh my gosh, the pastries that they produce in that resort are absolutely stunning. And so you can get that experience working in hotels. And then when you get that job, let's say at the Marriott, now you're also a Marriott associate. So when you travel, you get Marriott travel benefits. You get Hilton travel benefits when you work in hotels. So don't, even though you're culinary or baking and pastry, don't discount, or even restaurant management, don't discount hotels as a place to look for employment. Right outside my office door. So my office is right here, 304. Right around the corner from my office is a bulletin board. And we keep on every weekly to 2 weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, somebody's going to send me a job posting and we just put it up there. So you might swing by, just check to see what jobs are available. And just check that employment board if you're looking for something in the industry. And I have like 3 hotels that will update me at least on a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis. And oftentimes there is culinary and pastry included on those job postings. Um, so that is all I have. We're going to go over those KPIs, okay, on Wednesday. It will probably be a shorter class, maybe like only 45 minutes or so. So please try to be here on time. And